welcome to the Overlanding podcast, the original podcast dedicated to vehicle-dependent travel. I'm your host, Andy Smith, and throughout the series I'll be chatting with adventurous people who have chosen to travel the world by bicycle, motorcycle, car and truck. The aim of the podcast is to discover what motivates people to embark on life-changing journeys and to hear some incredible stories along the way. We don't have any guests on this week's episode. Instead, I'll be looking at the apps and maps that we used on our Around the World in 800 Days adventure. This podcast is an adaptation of a blog which I originally wrote, which you'll be able to find at www.aroundtheworldin800days.com. When we originally left the UK in 2012, all we had with us was a really old Nokia phone. Absolutely nothing smart about it, unless you consider the fact that you could use it to open beer bottles, which we frequently did. To navigate, we used to use a combination of paper maps and an old handheld Garmin 60CS. In 2013, we inherited an old iPhone and delved headfirst into the world of apps. Since then, we've also purchased a really basic Samsung smartphone, and as a result, our whole overlanding experience has improved greatly. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk through some of the apps and maps that we use on our smartphones, which help enrich our overlanding experience. Typically, in each country that we go to, we purchase a pay-as-you-go SIM card, prepaid SIM card, and this allows us to have 3G and sometimes 4G, depending on which country we're in, which means we can access most of the apps online. Typically, a lot of the apps that we use are also very practical offline, and this is something to take into consideration when you're choosing apps, especially navigation apps, because if you don't have access to internet via 3G, then it's very important that you can access your maps offline. Okay, so let's get started. Galileo is our main app which we use for navigation. Typically we carry paper maps also, which are great for overviews, but on a day-to-day basis we don't have a sat-nav. Our old GPS that we did have had really out-of-date maps on it, and that was also stolen in Iran. So now we just use our smartphones, and on the iPhone we use an app called Galileo. It's a map resource. It's very similar to Google Maps, but the beauty of it is that it works offline using pre-downloaded vector-based maps. So with one click you can download your entire country that you're in using the language that you want. Because the maps are vector-based, they're generally small in size, which means they're fast and very responsive. It also means that you can use them offline. You can record your trips and monitor your real-time speed, distance and time travelled, as well as your altitude. So it's very similar to a GPS in that regard. Your phone needs to have the GPS tracker in it for it to work correctly. Like most map apps, you can export all your files and share with your friends via mail, Facebook, Twitter, and export them in the most common formats, which are the KML and the GPX file. Galileo has essentially taken over the role of our old Garmin GPS, and we're incredibly happy for it. It's currently available for Android as well as iOS now as well, so Android users can use it. So that's Galileo. You'll find all the links to all these apps over on our website. On our Samsung phone, we downloaded an alternative to Galileo, which is basically Maps.me, or Maps with Me as it is officially known. It's essentially the same deal as Galileo. There was a time when Galileo was only available for iPhone users. So for me, being an Android user, I had to find an alternative. We generally prefer Galileo as the interface is much nicer and how it operates is much easier to use, but Maps.me is pretty much the same deal. It's particularly good as you can have a search facility on it, so if you're looking for garages, banks, cash machines, restaurants or anything, you can basically search for all these kind of facilities. It's an incredibly good offline map resource, especially for Android users. So that's Maps.me. When undertaking huge overland trips like this, it's very important to keep track of how much fuel your car is using. There are stacks and stacks of MPG apps available, but we've using the same one since we first got our smartphone, and we're more than happy with it. I think it was one of the first ones we found. It's entitled Road Trip. It's apparently the fastest and easiest way to keep track of your car's fuel economy, maintenance schedule and expenses. So basically every time you fill up with fuel, you make a note of the price. It has a currency converter on it, how many litres you've put in, and then it calculates your miles per gallon. For us, it's incredibly useful just to keep track of how well the car is performing and to keep track of finances. At a glance, Road Trip gives you all the vital stats on a single page. So minimum, maximum and average fuel price per gallon or litre, you can set that up to whichever you prefer. Minimum, maximum and average fuel economy, average cost per day, average cost per mile or kilometre, average distance per day, total fuel cost, total gallons or litres of fuel and a total distance travelled. So it's incredibly useful just to keep track of how many miles you drive a day as well, and just for the general well-being of your vehicle. Unfortunately, it's only available for iOS, so you can have it on iPod Touch, iPad and iPhone. I'm sure there are many alternatives out there for the Android platform, but Road Trip is our preferred choice. Our good overlanding friend David Priddis introduced us to Cam Scanner, and it's an incredibly useful app. It turns your mobile phone into a scanner and is a great resource for digitising paperwork and documents whilst you're on the road. It's especially handy during the shipping process, borders and applying for visas. Essentially, you just take a photo of your document, and Cam Scanner then can create PDF documents from it. And using a stack of settings, you can produce multi-page documents, crop and customize, and essentially email and forward all those documents to wherever you need them. So it's incredibly handy if you need to print documents out and you don't have access to a scanner. So that's Cam Scanner. It's available at www.camscanner.com. When you're on the road on an extended overland trip, you're obviously travelling through a lot of countries, and dealing with currencies can be incredibly confusing. So you need a good currency converter. Again, there are hundreds of currency converters available. We chose XE Currency Converter as it had the best reviews and is probably one of the most popular. You can access live exchange rates, view historical charts and calculate prices offline. So in that regard, it's incredibly useful for when we don't have internet access. It's available for all devices and has had 1 million downloads worldwide, so you know it's going to be good. It's also free, which is really great. Our next app is World Map. It's a very, very simple overview map of the world. No frills, useful for planning, but what it's really, really great at is explaining to newfound friends where you've been. The paid version has political maps and time zones, which is also quite useful, but the free version is just a very simple overview map of the world. It's a little bit tricky to find online, so if you head to our website, which is theoverlandingpodcast.com, you'll find links to the original blog post over at www.aroundtheworldin800days.com, where you'll find links to all these apps. Bean is a fun little app. That's B-E-E-N, Bean. It keeps track of the number of countries that you've visited, and it's incredibly inspiring when you're feeling a little low, and incredibly annoying to your friends when you're feeling smug. It's essentially a world map with all the countries listed. You can select the countries you've been to and it changes the colour of them, so you have a world overview map and it's very easy to see the number of countries you've been to. It also gives you basic stats of the percentage of the world that you've covered and how many countries within region you've visited. So it breaks it down to all the continents and essentially breaks down Europe again further into all the individual countries. It's just a fun app, especially for sharing on Facebook when you want to kind of rub it in that you've been to more countries than all your friends. iOverlander is more than just an app. You can access it online on your laptop or desktop as well. So it's essentially a website which has an incredibly useful app function. Originally a mapping project started by Overlanders, it has grown into a useful resource. You can find campsites, garages, restaurants, watering holes and much more. But all the information has been entered by fellow Overlanders, so you sign up, set up yourself an account and basically log your trip. So every time you find a really beautiful wild camp spot, you can mark it on iOverlander and share that information with other Overlanders. It currently covers pretty much a good percentage of the world. There are a lot of users on there and it's a useful resource, especially if you're looking for garages. We used to log specific Toyota dealers if we needed one. We would log any kind of 4x4 garages we would see, places to find water, all kinds of information. So it's a very useful resource for Overlanders. There are many Overlanders who have dedicated their time, ideas and most importantly their GPS coordinates to iOverlander. So log in and share your secrets. Sometimes they're best kept secrets, so very occasionally if we would find an absolutely stunning place that was completely unspoilt, we wouldn't log it. Is that a bit cheeky? Probably. Commander Compass is an extremely well thought out car and walk GPS compass app for iOS, so it's only available for Apple devices. Crafted to military spec, it is designed to be used where traditional GPS apps and maps fail, so off-road. It features a mil-spec compass, gyro compass, maps, GPS tracker, speedometer, gyro horizon and inclinometer. You can tag, share, find and track your position, multiple locations and bearings, all in real time. It has way too many features to list here, so check it out. It's called Commander Compass and is available via happymagenta.com/compass. Again, all these links will be on our website. Okay, that's it for this week's episode. It's a very short episode this week. Throughout the year, we're going to be putting in very varied and short podcasts which deal with the subjects that a lot of our listeners want answered. We had quite a few people contacting us, asking us what apps we use, how we navigate. So hopefully this short piece of information helps. Over the coming months, we'll have more and more of these little episodes sliced in between our traditional episodes where we interview fellow Overlanders. So that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'd really like to hear your feedback on this, so please get in contact with us at the overlandingpodcast.com or around the world in 800 days at mail.com. On our website you'll find all the links to our social media channels. That's it for this week. Join us around the campfire next week. Thank you very much.